Oh yeah. Hey everybody on Facebook Live, this is Frank Washcook with the PR Week podcast. We have a great guest this week, Rob Longert from Day One Agency. Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And so we're going to start recording in just a few seconds in 3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, this is Frank Washcook. This is the latest edition of the PR Week podcast, talking about everything going on in the worlds of PR and communications. We have a terrific guest for you this week, and Rob Longert, the managing partner of Day One Agency. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
It's you took the long trek here. What was it, about 500 yards from your office to our office?
Yes. I did have to avoid some children on the way for take your child to work day, both in my office and yours. So
yeah, we should do a bit of a PSA in that this is that is going on in our office as we speak. So if you hear children screaming, that's the reason why. Again, I want to thank Thomas Moore for coming on and co-hosting this week. Thomas, thanks very much. All right, so Rob, Day One Agency, you've had a great year. You're up 32% in 2018. That's a number a lot of firms would kill for. You've won Small Agency of the Year at the PR Week Awards.
Yes, thank you.
You have a really interesting dynamic, and the revenues are up, even though you're working with fewer clients than you were in 2017. So what's the secret sauce over there? What do you have going on?
So when we started the agency in 2014, we set out to create something new, something different. An agency that was really able to keep up with today's media landscape. And I think we're really achieving that thus far. But at the core of that is great people, is great relationships, is great clients. And we've really made it a priority to focus on those great people and those great clients. And really, basically I've said to the agency, today we have a goal to hire, the best 100 people and have the best tight group of clients. And I think that enables us to really get to know our clients, enables us to do great work, really build relationships with them. And from the day that myself and my two business partners, Josh Rosenberg and Brad Laney, left our last agency, the relationships were the core piece of, us building something new. And I think we want to stay really focused on that, both on our personnel side and both on our client side. And I think that's really enabled us to stay focused, enabled us to hire great people and find great clients.
How do you talk about yourselves as an agency? Are you a PR firm? Are you a marketing firm? Are you some hybrid?
Yeah, we're a digital communications agency, and we say we're the best of a PR, digital, and social agency. And for us, earned media, and I've heard your guys' most recent podcast. You spoke about this with, Fin Partners, and you spoke about this along the way, but earned really does have a role in today's media landscape and today's agency landscape. And we want to stay focused on that because for us, at the core of everything is a really good story. So whether we're creating a social strategy for somebody or doing a creative campaign for somebody, at the core of all of it has to be that story. But with our earned backgrounds, I started my career at Peppercom and was on the phones when people still did that, calling media. You had to sell the story, and I think we want to make sure that that is still core to everything that we do, even if sometimes that might have to do with an influencer campaign where you're paying people, or a paid social campaign where there's advertising. It's still really so much about this story for us and earning that place in, we like to say, somebody's scroll or somebody's stack. So that you can break through as a brand.
And is there an example you can give? I mean, you have some terrific clients, Amex, Chipotle, big companies like this. Tell us about some work along those lines that you've done for one of them.
Yeah, I think, Chipotle's a great example. Another great example is American Express, as you said, but let's go with Chipotle. I mean, they're a brand that has a amazing fan base. They can be irreverent. They can really speak to the audience that they want to reach. And, their story is all about real ingredients. So, no matter what we're doing, we have to tie back to that and still have fun while we're doing it to really make sure that people are engaged and responding to what the stories that we're telling are. So for instance, a few months back when they rolled out their a campaign all around the real ingredients, which had ATL combined with it, obviously social, PR, and we work closely with their PR agency. We live streamed for a whole morning 2 hours of prep. at Chipotle, which is really kind of pulling back
Which
the
might
curtain.
be right next door to you, isn't
It is. I've frequented it 3 times this week as a client, obviously, but it is right next door to us. And actually, we did the shoot in LA. But not only did we sort of work with Chipotle to open the doors, but we also then to get that out there, live streamed it on social, and then put it up on a Times Square billboard. Right, but at the core of that was all about real ingredients and pulling back the curtain about, what's going into your food every day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good example of like staying focused on that while then also using really great channels and platforms to get that story out.
I'm always really interested by newer agencies that are less than 5 years old, let's say. And when you guys all came from different shops, did you have something in your mind, and I know you gave us a little bit of the mission statement before, but did you have something in your mind to say, like, we're never going to be this kind of firm, or we don't want to look like this in 10 years, or this is the big regret we don't want to have, or anything like that? I mean, I'm trying to get a feel for your culture here by a podcast.
Yeah. Luckily, we selected a name that says it, right? Day one to us means that like every single day, you need to bring fresh thinking to the table. Every single day, you need to be open to a new platform that might be, coming onto the scene, or a new person that's driving culture that might have just left an editorial outlet and no longer has a home, right? And we like to talk about those people as edifluencers almost. But
I've never heard, that's a new term, and I thought I had heard all the terms.
Well, that's
influencers.
It might be the first time we've used it externally. So,
all right.
But I think it was always about staying fresh, and it was never doing things the way that they might have been done the day before. If the media landscape is changing as quickly as it is, we wanted to build an agency that was able to adapt to that and be part of that. And we like to say we kind of shed our skin every 6 months, like the staffing changes in terms of what we might need. We hired a VP of story 2 years ago. I had never heard of that at another agency before we wrote that job description. We just hired 2 creative directors on the East Coast and the West Coast. That's something we didn't have or know that we necessarily needed at the outset of our agency. But as we've grown and as our clients have challenged us in different ways, we have to be able to evolve with that rather than saying, well, this is the way that we do things. And I think we're just really open to the evolution of what an agency could be, and being really good partners with our clients has to be grounded in responding to really what they need to tell those great stories.
Right. So what does the VP of Story do, for instance?
So our agency is set up in 3 centers of excellence, which is another sort of difference. Like we, because we are this hybrid of an agency, we kind of took the best of what we knew. And once again, going back to our PR roots, something interesting is that we don't have on the creative and sort of digital side account people. Everybody is in the mix in managing clients. Everyone's in the mix in getting to know clients. I think that's really important. But the agency's, like I said, is set up into these 3 centers of excellence, one around shaping the story, one around sharing the story, and one around fueling stories. And the VP of story really helps to lead up the shaping the story piece. And that's really like, we like to say, the agency's secret weapon, because nailing a brief and really understanding what a client's asking for, and then being able to tap into culture and come up with like the idea and the story that we want to tell. As we said, we're so story first. I've said that word a lot of times now, but Rachel Albright, is core to that. And she really helps us push us and help us think about those things and ask the right questions and really help move that along. And then, on the journey of bringing a campaign to life, she's then really infused in what the creative is and making sure that it always ties back to it, and making sure that our outreach strategy or our social strategy is tying back to that. So it's kind of a gut check along the way, but a really big inspiration at the outset of a project.
It's really timely that you're on this week's podcast, because a big theme of this year's Agency Business Report, which, dear listener, if you have not taken a look at, you should. It's on our website. It's been on our website since Tuesday morning. It's a terrific, comprehensive piece of work.
I would agree.
Thank you for that, Rob. Ringing endorsement. But a big theme of it this year is that a lot of the great work and a lot of the great ideas is coming from the smaller and mid-sized shops. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously you're one of them, but why do you think that's where they're coming from now?
I think we're able to, like I said earlier, like we're structured a little bit differently. So everybody is really involved in the work, from our associate creative strategist up to our CEO. And I think the fact that our CEO can have those conversations with an associate strategist, or a VP can have those conversations with, somebody that might be more junior, or kind of, it levels the playing field a bit so that we're all talking the same language. And I think some of the best ideas come from the most junior people. And I think we're really open to that. And they are in touch with, a platform like TikTok, which I know is in your trends this year, and might be able to help us take that and figure out how to inspire something that might not even live on TikTok, but a trend or a meme that's happening there, and infuse it into what a big brand needs. So I think that communication, number one, and that sense of community, I think for us, our culture is based on community. We say our community is our culture, and our culture is our community. Like, those interactions that can happen at a smaller agency are really important in us getting the best ideas. And there's this true team mentality also, right? I mean, the best teams know, in basketball, the best teams can pass the ball and know that somebody's going to be there before the ball gets there, or before they even look somebody in the eyes to get that pass. And I think the same is true once you really get to know your teammates, once you get to know the people that are around you and the true capabilities of your agency. I think that's where the best ideas can happen.
What's like the median age at your agency? I'd imagine you skew a bit younger than most shops do.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably, we're not supposed to ask ages,
right.
But it's probably, mid-20s.
Right.
But that said, we also just hired one of the, a very experienced executive vice president that brings a crazy amount of experience and know-how and expertise to the PR world. And combine that with somebody that is younger, and all of a sudden, like, the ideas really start flowing, and there's also a good filter for it. Because if you only have super junior folks, they might not have the polish or the finesse to actually sell in the idea to a big brand like we work with. But when we have these amazing VPs and senior leadership teams combined with that, I think it's very powerful.
I feel like there's a bit of, not cockiness, but a lot of confidence developing among the smaller and mid-sized shops now. I was talking with the CEO of one a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about a list of more legacy PR firms and said, when we know we're up against them in a pitch, we have a pretty good idea we're going to win. And I think there's a bit of a positive arrogance for them, among the smaller and mid-sized shops. Would you agree with that?
I can only speak for us. Yeah. We're not arrogant. That's not our culture.
A positive arrogance.
I think
swagger, perhaps.
I wouldn't even say we're not boastful in that way. Like, we know what we're really good at, and we stay really focused on it. And those shops have been around for a while for a reason. And many of us that work at the agency have worked at them. As I mentioned, I worked at Peppercom, and I really cut my teeth in the agency world there and learned the skills that I needed. And they are a legacy agency, and I know they've undergone some changes also. But like, if I came up against Ed or Steve in a pitch, I would know that, like, they're experts at what they do. So I don't think you can necessarily discount the legacy agencies, but we can bring the fresh thinking that maybe they're unable to bring to the table. Not specifically Peppercom, but any legacy agency, because we can be more nimble. We have different skill sets. We might think of an idea a little bit differently. A perfect example for us was, we won a project with H&M recently to help them launch their store in Hudson Yards. And we were, basically the only earned agency in the mix, because it was a creative pitch, all around, theoretically above the line and advertising creative. And we came into the pitch with what we were really good at, which was a really good story, ideas around influencer, infusing amazing talent into our campaign that was probably different than anybody had thought of, and came and had this campaign all around H&M Loves New York that might have been like fully baked in a different way than one of these legacy agencies might have come in thinking about. So I think it's not that, I don't think there should be an arrogance. I think we should all be a bit respectful about like where we've all come from, but we just know we can bring different ideas to the table. So it always matters what the client wants on the other side, because we could be the freshest, hottest, newest agency, and a client might really find that interesting, but another client might say, we want a traditional news bureau, and then one of those, legacy agencies might have even more experience than we do there, and we can do that as well. We can do the straight up PR and earned media relations, but I don't know, to go back to your question, I don't think there necessarily needs to be an arrogance. There should be a respect around it, and know that like we're just going to bring something different to the table.
You should be arrogant about your sneakers. They're terrific, and we probably
okay. I could be arrogant about the sneakers.
We can't catch them via audio, but they're bright orange Nikes, and they're terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. So you mentioned influencers, and you mentioned setting up that campaign for H&M. Where do you see the influencer market at right now? I mean, there's still so much talk about this, and whether that's peaked and coming back down to earth, or it's definitely evolving. So where do you see it at?
I think it's hit a point where you really need to be diligent about the folks that you want to work with. I think between fake followers and sort of just influencers feeling more like billboards than people, brands really have to take a step back and say, why am I using influencers? Mm-hmm. But if you think about this goes back to also the editfluencer comment that I made earlier, like it's all about trust. It's about having a trusted audience. Like, you guys are trusted journalists, and if, you're speaking on behalf of PR Week, you're trusted, but if you're speaking on behalf of yourself, you're also trusted. And I think whether you're speaking on behalf of a brand or yourself as an influencer, the main thing is that your audience trusts you. So I think sometimes the numbers don't necessarily tell that whole story. You can have 1 million followers, or you can have 1,000 followers, and I don't think influence necessarily needs to be based on that. So I think it's going to hit a point where brands are saying, like, we don't want just billboard slash influencers. We really want them to help us move the needle for a business result. And maybe sometimes that is the 5.5 million follower influencer, but maybe that's sometimes the 500 follower influencer. So I think it's just changing. I think we all moved really quickly to understand it. It was once bloggers, right? And
bloggers, remember bloggers?
Yeah, bloggers.
I remember bloggers.
And so do I, but I think the best way to work with them was really to understand what their audience was, and then help them write about something they felt really passionately about, not like necessarily hold a product on Instagram, right?
And look how many of them became themselves, these trusted media voices. Like, you'd always think of like Brian Stelter. Now you can't get away from him. He does so much stuff on CNN, and he does the newsletter, and it's the same sort of thing. You see that like passion for covering media that he had, but at a more established
right. And I think like maybe the influencer that is influential in quick service restaurants isn't always the one that Chipotle wants to use. Like, they just worked with David Dobrik, who's a big time YouTuber, and they knew that he would reach the exact audience that they wanted to. And I think it wasn't about the fact that he had so many YouTube subs or social following. It was that he had that, plus he truly knew how to reach these folks that really trusted him. And when he showed up on their doorstep with Chipotle, they freaked out. And I think that was an emotional reaction to an influencer because they loved him so much. Yeah. And then they, by way of, the program we worked with David on, like, got to experience the brand for a second too through his lens. So I think the other thing with influencer is co-creation. We had a panel at the agency about that about 2 months ago, and we had 4 influencers come in and talk about like what co-creation meant to them and how they wanted to work with brands, and they didn't really want to be told what to do. They wanted to be given a challenge in the same way that we are as marketers, and really help that brand solve it and understand the voice of the brand. And they get the restrictions. They know if you're working with an American Express, there are certain things that you need to abide by. Or if you're working with Chipotle, there are going to be certain rules that you need to abide by. But they wanted those sort of guardrails and wanted to come back to us with creative solutions to the challenges that we were asking them for. So I think the co-creation piece is so important.
Interesting stuff. All right, Rob Longert, Day One Agency.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again for joining us this week. Thomas is going to walk us through the big PR and communications news of the week now, and I hope you will join in and help us critique this. And before I forget, we love PR Week cupcakes whenever they show up at the office. So thank you to Evolve MKD for those. We'd be horrible if we didn't say thanks. So Thomas, walk us through the biggest PR and communications news of the week, starting with the FBI.
The FBI, great. The FBI
Which wants your help.
They do. They want your help, not finding the top 10 most wanted. They want some help tracking, Yeah, specifically, they really don't want your help doing that. They're looking for a platform to track influencers, media influencers, social media influencers, and really get some feel for the campaigns they're putting out. They issued the RFI on the 27th. They're not looking for a firm to do it. They're looking for a firm to tell them what platform will do it for them. And it was an interesting RFI in that the agency made a big, strong point of pointing out that they're not going to be tracking people with this platform. They're not interested in individuals' behavior. Yeah, I mean, they really made a point of that. They don't have authorization to use it for law enforcement purposes. So, but you know, I mean, you could understand why. They had a really great use case that they offered in the RFI, putting out a word to people that if you joke about threats and violence happening on social media, that in some cases that could be a federal crime. And so they did a campaign about that last year, and I guess they're probably going to go ahead with that. And that's the kind of thing that they want to use the platform.
And that's an
to track.
Interesting campaign too.
Yeah. It's really geared towards teens, is what they were hoping, who maybe don't understand the seriousness of what they're doing. They're being flippant on social media.
I'll be so interested to see what tool or platform they go with.
Yeah.
Because in my experience over the years, no matter which one you have, you got to have the great people to be able to, look at the data and really understand what's being said. So.
Yeah, they are asking for consultants to train them and support if they need it, but they want something that's in the cloud, and so they're not looking for full-time staff. So.
All right, what's next on the list for the top news of the week?
The LA Chargers social media.
Are you a fan?
I'm not a big football fan, but I am a huge fan of what they did.
And so I am a football fan, as some of you may know, and although we talk about it every week. That's right. So, but if you follow a fair amount of sports reporters on Twitter, they're all like, the Chargers have the best social media team. They're the best social media team, at least in the NFL, because they're not mean, but they're goofy enough, and they really get it. And PR Week Diana Bradley was able to chat with them this week about the kind of culture they built, and it's a really interesting story that you should check out.
Yeah, I mean, she was pointing out in her story that the social media team, not the Chargers themselves, really have an attitude of everyone chips in. The head of it compared them to a sitcom staff where everyone sits around a table and fires off ideas, and it seems like the ones that they're firing off just don't miss. And comparing their teams to Pop-Tarts. I mean, I'm not a sports fan, and that's the other thing that comes up in the office.
But are you a fan of Pop-Tarts?
I am a fan of Pop-Tarts,
right.
And I was a fan of that post. I read it to go, okay, that's pretty good.
And you saw that, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Pop-Tart stuff. I really like the video they put out about the powder blue jerseys, and in the video they had Junior Seau, which just reminds me of like my childhood. And I think the best part of it all, though, and this speaks to some of the trends you guys were highlighting, was the personalization aspect of it. Like, they were listening to exactly what their fans wanted, and everyone, not everybody, but a good groundswell of folks were saying, we love these powder blue jerseys, and like, here they are putting out a piece of content that was amazing, highlighting the powder blue jerseys, but also saying we heard you. And that was the takeaway that I got as I was watching it. Like, it was a hype reel, but it also said we heard you, fans. And
I would argue that the powder blue jerseys are the best jerseys in the NFL. So, controversial take there. So, you know what I liked about it was that so sports social media, especially like sports Twitter and sports Instagram, is just so like vile and vicious and curse word filled and mean and all that.
Yeah.
And like when a team goes and does this like kind of good, clean, fun thing, I think it really works. Where they're not even really poking fun at opponents; they're just kind of goofing off. And I don't know. I think it really worked for them. I think the schedule release videos were terrific. I think they've done a terrific job. And you even see like the snarkiest sports reporters think they're really good at this. So, yeah.
I also think, like you said, the way their team is structured is just so interesting. And that goes back to everything we were just talking about, right? Like, you have to have those awesome people to be able to be hearing that, turning around creative so quickly. It's like an editorial newsroom or SNL, as you said, like model that just is fascinating. I think, and brands obviously want to be doing that too. So it's a really great case study to take a look at if you guys haven't looked at it yet.
All right. Yes, you should look at
Plug.
it. All right, Thomas, tell us a little bit about Arby's and their Easter egg.
Okay, Arby's posted this Easter egg on their website a while back and promptly forgot about it. And someone in the tech industry's managed to find it, and they're going to send the guy a gift. The Easter egg was a picture of a roast beef sandwich written in ASCII code on their website. So for those who aren't knowledgeable about that aspect of websites, if you do a right click in Windows, you can reveal code and you can see all the code, which is something that you would do if you were in coding and the person saw it. And it's kind of funny that right around Easter it was discovered. And
what kind of gift are they getting?
You know,
is it a beef and cheddar?
I hope so. I'm not sure, but I hope it's a sandwich.
I would love it if somebody sent me a beef and cheddar. That's a terrific idea.
Yeah, you know, and there's kind of, it's a similar, there's been a couple other Easter eggs of brands, you know, Diana mentioned in the article, have had out there. I mean, one thinks about Reese's that was only following Reese Witherspoon on Twitter, or wait, no, Instagram rather, and same thing with KFC, it was following the Spice Girls and six people named Herb. And I think, you know, it's kind of, that's the kind of humor I think that is hard to do on social media, and it's hard to do with those teams, but it's just kind of just to have that perfect tone that's not so anodyne that everyone just yawns, catches people's attention without offending people. It's really a hard line to walk.
I was impressed. Do you think they actually forgot about it?
I do.
Yeah.
They said they did. I do.
Okay.
I would expect a brand such as Arby's, well known, to do that. And I think it was so much in their voice, right? Like the subscription boxes that they put out a few months ago. It's like, it's so on for them. And I think it was also like a set it and forget it. Like it was like someone had this idea, they did it, and they're like, someday someone's going to discover this. And it's kind of cool, like to basically probably have the, you know, everything ready to roll, have that in a folder somewhere on your desktop and the response ready, and then like that hits and you get to put that out. Like that was probably super gratifying for the brand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, Thomas, what's next on the list?
Okay, the JetBlue. JetBlue is looking for comms people, and one of the duties of a comms person and the JetBlue team is cleaning the airplanes if they happen to be around the
which sounds terrible at first, but
no, it's not.
It's not.
It's something that everyone does. It's expected of you. I guess they have a phrase there: if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. And you know, I mean, it really brings together the team. I think with the customers and keeping everybody on track.
So I interviewed the then Chief Communications Officer at JetBlue a couple years ago, and she talked about this, about how it's just part of the culture there, that every executive, really, like every employee at the company, that's part of their duty, and it's a big team effort with turning the plane around and things like that. And I think that's a terrific cultural idea at a company. I think it's a great idea, and you know, and good for them what their CEO does it, and you know, good for them sticking to it.
Yeah, I have.
You know how it is when you get off a plane. You just want to get off a plane.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
and you know, good for them for sticking with it.
And you know what it's like when you're sitting, waiting to board a plane, and it just takes forever, and you're just dying to get on and get on your way. So the faster they can turn them around, the better.
I will say that feels like very much to the point you were saying earlier about almost like the small agency versus like a behemoth, where you know that's so built into their culture that it makes JetBlue feel a little bit smaller as a company and closer to the customer. And I think the same is true in our industry, right? Like when you're able to say, and me as the managing partner is, you know, putting stuff in the dishwasher, like it doesn't matter. Everybody's doing everything that's necessary to make the agency run, and I just loved reading that one. I thought it was awesome.
Good stuff. All right, Thomas, tell us about a few account moves.
Yeah, we got a couple of good ones this week. Northwestern Mutual selected M Booth as its consumer PR and social AR, focused on building momentum for its Spend Your Life Living campaign. So that happened. That was another PR week, Diana.
It was.
Story,
it was a good
She's
story.
like on a roll.
And you broke a good one too, I might add.
I
earlier
did.
This week.
Yes.
Give yourself some credit, will you?
Pat myself on the back. Yeah. Xfinity, Comcast's residential products and services brand, has consolidated a lot of their work with Ketchum. Now, according to the people at Xfinity, they work with a series of agencies. They called out Edelman, or consolidated under Ketchum, right? I was thinking that maybe I said the wrong name there a minute ago. But they have been working with Edelman and Taylor, not the only agencies they work with, but those were two that they mentioned. And they're deciding to kind of scooch things together and bring it all under Ketchum.
All right, interesting stuff. And Ketchum's on a bit of a roll nowadays, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been doing well.
Second good account win in as many weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't count out these big agencies.
All right. So Rob, thanks very much for coming on the show this
Thank
week.
you.
Really appreciate it.
It's
Thomas,
wonderful.
thank you for co-hosting.
Thank you.
And thank you to Sean and Mickey who are behind the dials. This is this week's edition of the PR Week. We'll see you again in 7 days. Thanks again.